The number of homeless people in the Bay Area is a well-known and serious problem. Less well-known is homelessness among another population, another species, cats. Holly Chenette's day job is teaching Spanish at East Side College Preparatory School in East Palo Alto, but her avocation is caring for the growing number of feral cats in the community. Consider this: one unspayed female cat can become 88,000 or more cats over a span of 5 years. As a volunteer for the Homeless Cat Network, Holly has been trapping, spaying, neutering, and fostering hundreds of cats for the last 15 years. How did you get started doing this?
In 2007, my husband called me saying, hey, there's a litter of kittens in our backyard of our office. And so I went and looked, and boy, were they cute. The mother was white, and the kittens were little tiny white balls of fluff, mostly white. And I went home and I researched what you do in that case, and then I met up with Nicola of the Homeless Cat Network. So she came over, she came to that office and saw that I had them by then in the bathroom. And it was very easy to see that they were dirty, and that because they were white, so it was easy to see the fleas and the dirt. She grabbed each one and took it to a faucet and washed each one, and that just seemed so impressive to me that it's such a simple way to make a big difference in a cat's life. So I was hooked. I stayed with the program. You know, I became a volunteer just like she had been.
What are the biggest threats or dangers to these cats that maybe we don't know about?
Sicknesses, cars, suffering, stress from reproduction. They're domestic animals. They really don't need to be on the streets. They suffer there. There's not enough food for them there. The kittens will grow up with upper respiratory infections, and if they're not treated, they lead to other problems. They don't belong on the streets. I think we've become accustomed to it in some areas.
Should people feed the cats? What should they feed them? How should they feed them? Should they turn them in? What do I do when I see one?
Thank you for the question, because yes, feeding is okay. We as rescuers love to have healthy populations, and in order to have healthy populations, they need to find food somewhere. So cat food has the basic nutrition, and that's great when residents can feed them. They can also look closely and see if maybe the cat has already had its ear tipped. The veterinarian, when they neuter them, will trim the top corner off the ear to notify everyone that it's been neutered. So what the Homeless Cat Network and I think all rescue organizations recommend as the most humane way to deal with this problem is TNR, which is trap, neuter, release. And so we trap them humanely. We get them neutered and get their basic vaccinations and flea treatment, and then we release them back where we found them, particularly, of course, if they're feral and adults. We have humane traps, and so you put food in one end, and the cat will love the smell and go in, and then the door will close down on the cat on the other end. Doesn't hurt the cat, it does scare it. Then we are checking regularly. We come right over, we cover it with a towel, and that really calms the animal down. And then we take it off to the vet. If we come across kittens or we come across tame cats, which does happen, then of course we send them into the fostering and adoption route.
Tell me what that entails, and how long do you keep them, and what do you have to do?
So we're always needing foster people. That entails keeping the animal or multiple animals a few weeks, more than a few weeks probably, socializing them, seeing that their basic needs are met, taking them to appointments, neutering or adoption fairs, which happen often, taking nice photos of them, having them put on Pet Finder so that they can be adopted.
You talk about socializing. What does that mean?
The more chaos in your home, the better for fostering. If you've got kids, if you've got dogs, if you've got noise, that's what we want them. We want them to be exposed to that.
Okay,
so
so they're used to chaos
Yeah.
in general. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they grow up. So now I have 2 cats and a dog, and that first family of white kittens that we were talking about, well, the runt of that litter, I guess you'd call that a foster fail. It ended up staying in my home.
How hard is it if you keep fostering and giving up and fostering and giving up? Isn't that hard?
It gets easier with every time. And yes, it was hard in the beginning, but it does get easier as time goes by. And then I realize, well, I'm making space in my home so that I can go out and find more, and solve more problems out on the street. Homeless cats keep appearing on the streets. I want to do what I can. It's a small thing, but I think it makes a big difference to the cat. So the time is now. The time is now to help these animals.
Evelyn Keomium is the founder and director of the Carrot School Project, which runs a school for children who live in extreme poverty and do labor for meals in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. Evelyn was born in Abidjan and was a street child herself. At age 6, she taught herself to read. At 16, she had a son. And at 26, she made her way to Palo Alto, where she soon graduated from college and is now working on a master's in special education. On her first visit back to her home, she had stunning realizations that led directly to the creation of Carrot School, in a town where only half the population can read and 2/3 of the girls are not in school. So 2 years ago, Evelyn became the help she wished she had had as a child. Carrot School, now serving 30 students, has amenities that Evelyn herself never enjoyed when growing up. Electricity, running water, 2 laptop computers, free uniforms, and 2 meals a day, in addition to education and play of a normal school. They have also installed a water system for the whole community, providing clean water to 5,000 people.
I grew up in a very small but yet very packed home. I am one of 7. I'm the youngest. Sometimes it was 1 meal a day, sometimes there was none, but I was just happy to be there. My dad, we didn't have much, and so going to school wasn't something that was just offered to kids. So when it became my turn and there was no money to enroll me in school, and when there was money, a male child was going to get enrolled before me, I decided to take matters into my own hand. And I did my first business pitch so that I could sell some cold water on the market for a lady. And she looked at me and she said, "Why would you do that?" And I said, "Well, because I need money to buy a pencil and a notebook to be able to go to school." But let's just say I was very determined. And there was a part of me that always somehow knew that if I just learn how to read, if I stay in school, and if I go to school, my life will be different than what it was at the time and what I was seeing around me for myself and so many friends and so many mothers around. And so that determination made me really just want to learn how to read and write. 14 years ago, I think it's been now, I decided to just move and see what's elsewhere and get a better life for myself and my son. And so I landed in California. But back in 2016, I went back, and it was just such a mixed feeling to be back. And I remember from the airport to the house, the first red light, the car stops, and there are about 15 children just rushing to the car with something. Some of them cleaning the windshield, some of them offering cold water and oranges and all sorts of things. You know, there's like a supermarket by the red light, and it's ran by children. And when I was talking to the children, they said, "Look, Miss Evelyn, when we're in the classroom and we're hungry, we want to be back here selling something so we can eat, and so that our families can also eat." And so because of that, I said, you know, we're going to have a school. I don't know how, but this is what we're going to do, because I want to make sure that the kids that we have are staying in school and we're accomplishing what we set out to accomplish. I sat down and I called my sister back there, and I asked them, I said, well, I want to do something with the children on the street, but I want to focus on education. So what would it take us to get these kids together, and teach them how to read and write? And because I found out that the kids were working for a meal, I said, I really want to give them a meal because that will attract them and it will also give them a security of that nutritious meal, at least for the days that they're with us. And so they were like, oh, okay, if you want to feed 50 children, it's X amount, and if you want to feed 100 children, it's X amount. I looked at this and I'm like, wait, you mean I can feed 100 kids per day with that? I want to do that. Like, it just really made me feel like I was doing something important because of how far this little bit of money could go. So we have a girl right now, I'm gonna keep her name to myself, and she is the testimony of what happens to a girl when she's not in school, okay? This girl is only 10. We've had her for 2 years. The whole time she was on the street, she was raped more than 10 times before we got a hold of her. It's such a testimony that every day we're able to, provide a meal for these children, and we're changing lives, and they keep coming back, and we can't wait to be able to bring more children in. Everybody's loving it. The teachers, we have teachers who've been teaching for 15 years, and they like, we've never seen this turn around in our lives. It's amazing. Wow. The kids are really transforming the skills that they have acquired on the street. Take a 9-year-old who's never been in school, who's been on the street their entire life. They learn something. You just want to channel that thing into something that will be useful to them. So let's tap into their potential. It's like there is a little bit of me in each one of them, and if we can shine it a little bit, right? That's where we get our name for, and that big diamond from. They are priceless, and if we can shine them a little bit, I think they will shine.
Hi there, Maria.
Hello.
How are you?
I don't know if you've seen our website.
Oh, that's our website. That is
Fair point.
welcome, welcome. Come on in.
Thank you so much.
Would you like to have a seat over
Sure.
there? How about them Bears, the 49ers, what are you having for dinner tonight?
The bird representing your flight to freedom, and the flower, the plumeria. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. You're welcome.
Do you have your well, the plumeria,
But there were each of the gems represented something.
most people are familiar with that.
Warrior.
No,
Wanna. You know, they're afraid of him too.
the name. What names can we be thinking about?
So I have a question. Have we ever asked those individuals, what was it that, or for women that are currently part of the network?
And he exploded last night. He started way back in October, and there was an incident, and the police were called. And he's coming home tonight. I don't know what to do. It's because they don't want to, and they're not. That would mean.
Let's talk. Let's break it up and see if we can riff on it a little. So does
Allows you to be unique, because a lot of people have the same words in their name, and you don't, and having
On par with other organizations. The other thing is it kept Guilty Cage in there. The other thing is that if you were to use it as an acronym, it would still be
Jessica Radmilovic was a competitive gymnast in high school and had plans of going to college on a pole vaulting scholarship. But at the age of 16, while snowboarding, she took a jump, had a bad landing, and everything changed. She broke her back and is now confined to a wheelchair. But that never dampened her spirit or slowed her down. During her recovery, she found wheelchair basketball, and she was soon recruited to the University of Arizona, where she played for the wheelchair basketball team and went on to play on the USA National Women's Wheelchair Basketball team. She later became a triple gold medalist and holds 2 world records in disabled water skiing. She's currently the recreational therapist in the Spinal Cord Injury, or SCI, Center at the VA in Palo Alto. She provides services to 26 SCI veteran inpatients. She works with the vets to help reintegrate them into the community and daily life after injury.
So I broke my back snowboarding when I was 16, took a jump gone bad, fell, and that was that. Didn't really have time. I went to rehab for only about 3.5 weeks. So I was a junior in high school. I was only gone from school for 5 weeks total. So.
And did it ever come back and just super depress you?
Not really, no, because life just kind of moved forward. I just got involved into adaptive sports right away, and that was just a huge experience for me.
So you also went to a basketball camp, and I understand that was, if not life-changing, huge.
Yeah, so that was actually, I think, my first trip after becoming disabled and using a wheelchair by myself. I was actually going into my freshman year of college, and my mom signed me up for this camp I really didn't want to go to at first in Illinois at the wheelchair basketball program that they have there. But I went, and that was really the first time that I was able to connect with other young people with disabilities. Spinal cord, spina bifida, amputations, all that kind of thing. And so I really discovered that community, that I wasn't alone, and I was able to move forward and do all these different things. So I was able to get that kind of peer connection and education from them and their life experiences and be able to grow from that.
What is recreation therapy?
So recreation therapy is probably the best job on the planet. We work along, at least in a rehab setting, clinical settings, we work alongside an interdisciplinary team. So that means we're working with physical therapists, occupational therapists, psychology, the physicians, the whole team gets together because we're working on the similar goals for that veteran. But the uniqueness about recreation therapy is that we don't just address the physical issues. So I work on spinal cord injury unit. I'm not just looking at the spinal cord injury as that. I'm looking at the person as a whole. So I get to address the social, emotional, physical, cognitive, and spiritual aspects of that person and use recreation activities such as adaptive sports or yoga, creative arts, things like that, to help facilitate growth and change and them meeting their rehab goals in all of those areas. My experiences from being disabled and kind of living an active lifestyle through recreation therapy essentially gives me the background to connect with my patients as well, the veterans that I work with. I have that kind of in with them where they can't really say no to me. They can't say, you don't understand, you don't know what you're talking about, because I do, and they trust me. And so they're able to have real conversations and get really down to the nitty-gritty type of personal things that they might not be able to ask other people. One of the challenges with my job is buy-in from the veterans. You get that pushback in the initial rehab from veterans or patients that don't want to participate in the recreation therapy program. But once they do, and if they continue that, they always come back and thank me. Whether it's a year later, 5 years later, they come back, and that's probably one of my favorite parts of my job is because we get to see these veterans progress year by year. I love watching that growth and being part of that. And then also getting that kind of gratification from them saying, if it weren't for you and your rec therapy program, I would not be this person. There's no dull moment. I love being able to accommodate the specific needs of an individual person based on what they want to do and get out of it. And sometimes it's challenging. I might not know the answer, so I am always learning and I'm always doing new things. And so it's really unique and fun. You have a choice. You can either be happy or sad, and whatever path you take, that's on you. So I chose the happy path.
Sarai Espinosa Salamanca has created an app, and she's the founder and CEO of a startup. An app and a startup in Silicon Valley, so what else is new? For one thing, her startup, Dreamers Roadmap, is a nonprofit. It offers a free national mobile app that helps undocumented students find scholarships to go to college. And it appears to have no real competitors in the marketplace. And the market is enormous. Of the 65,000 undocumented students who graduate from high school annually, only 5 to 10% go to college. It's not for lack of ability or qualifications, but for lack of money. Almost a third of undocumented children live below the poverty line and can't afford college. Most of them are simply unaware that financial aid is available and that they can go to college. But most notably, Dreamers Roadmap springs from Sarai's own personal and painful experience as an undocumented Mexican immigrant.
I grew up thinking I was an American kid. All my life, I knew that I was an immigrant, right? Because we talked about it, but never in my mind did I think that I was an undocumented immigrant. So when I was 16 years old, my parents decided to self-deport. A sister of mine got referred or kind of advised that if they left the country, it would be faster for them to come back into the country as legal residents. So they made that decision, and they invited me to come with them, but I told them that I didn't want to leave because I was in high school. I was in the middle of my educational career in high school, and I couldn't even imagine being away for 6 months, which was what's supposed to be the time that they were supposed to leave.
But the advice they received turned out to be wrong. Her parents were not allowed to return to the United States.
Not long after my parents left, I found out that I was not only an immigrant in this country, but I was an undocumented immigrant. And that came about when I started to apply for financial aid. And I received a notice that I had to fill out my Social Security part. When I went to my counselor and told her that I didn't have that number, she told me that people like me couldn't go to college because I was undocumented. I felt that I was the only person in this country that was undocumented that was trying to go to college because nobody was talking about it back in 2008. I thought I was the only one. When I found out that I was undocumented, I was still trying to put the pieces together of what that even meant, right? So one of them was I can't go to college, then was I can't work, or it's very hard for me to find a job because I don't have authority to work. And then just other than that, it was like, well, who am I? What can I do as an undocumented immigrant in this country? So there was a lot of, I guess, puzzling for me, putting it together, like, who am I, what can I do, and who can I trust? So after graduating from high school with honors and not being able to have a clear path into college, it was a lady from my church, out of all places, that reached out to me. She knew me since I was very young, since we got here from Mexico. So she asked me where I was going to go to college. And I told her, you know what, hey, I'm not going to go to college. Please stop asking me. It's really hurtful for you to ask me. And the reason is because I'm undocumented and I can't go and I can't afford it. And that's when she told me that her son was a counselor at Tianza and he would help undocumented students like me go to college all the time. So she told me that there was in-state tuition for undocumented students like myself, figured that out, and was able to put myself into college in 2008, that same year that I graduated. Not long after I started community college, my father got diagnosed with cancer back in Mexico, and expenses started to get very high. So I decided to drop out to work full-time to send them money for the expenses back in Mexico. Not long after that, he passed away. So when my dad passed away, I told my mom that I was going back to Mexico. I'm like, that's it. The whole reason why I was trying to get an education was to give you guys a better life. If my dad has passed away and now I don't want you to go through this alone. Again, she told me to stay. She's like, you did everything that you could when he was here. We appreciate your support. Not long after that is when DACA passed, which gave me the opportunity to apply for a work permit and to be in this country legally for 2 years. I said I wanted to go back to school, but when I went back to school, I wasn't gonna shy myself for my fullest potential, if you will. And I was gonna do everything in my power to help other students, one, know that they could go to school in the situation that I was in, and 2, remind them and let them know that they do belong in this country. It started with this blog and me putting local scholarships onto this blog, letting other people know these are the scholarships that got me in and they can help you. I hope they can, and here they are. And yeah, in 2014, the competition opened up, Voto Latino Innovators Challenge, and it was asking anybody in the country to solve a problem using technology to solve it. So I pitched my idea and I made it to the top 6 in the country. And I went to DC, pitched it in front of the judges. Mind you, with no tech experience of coding or anything, I did my demo on Word using shapes. Just grabbed a phone from Google, put little shapes on top of it. And I said, this is what the app would look like. It would serve all of this population. I went through this a couple years ago. Thousands of students are going through it today still, and no one is doing anything about it. And I have the solution, and I want you to support me to fix it. So I won first place in the country, and I came home with $100,000 to be able to launch my app. So what we do and makes us different from everybody else is that we do it based on state, educational level, and whether you have DACA or not, which makes it a lot easier. So we have filters on our app. When you download it, you answer those 3 questions, and then it tells you out of those 3 questions that you answered, these are the scholarships that you qualify for, which makes it a lot easier for the student, saves them a lot of time. And not so long ago, we already started hearing of stories of people who graduated from college, being the first in their family because of the funding that they found on Dreamers Roadmap. And that just fills my heart with pure joy. On July 2015, I finally became a green card holder. So not long after that, I was already very pregnant also. That's another big thing that happened in 2015. I was pregnant with my first child. I got my green card in July. And in October of 2015, I traveled to Mexico for the very first time after immigrating to this country over 20-something years and not being able to see my mom for over 10 years. We finally reunited in Tijuana, Mexico.
Palo Alto's Downtown Streets team is one organization that addresses 2 very different problems at the same time: trash on the streets and panhandling among the homeless. It does this by recruiting the unhoused, often unemployed, to keep the downtown area clean and safe, so people who were once sleeping on the streets are now cleaning them up. Downtown Streets team has an unusual tough love philosophy and some innovative policies that have made it far more successful than other programs for the unhoused. The organization, started in Palo Alto in 2004, has now helped over 1,000 people end their homelessness and graduated over 1,000 people into employment. The program is now in 16 California communities, and last year they recovered over 2 million gallons of debris from the cities. The program has been replicated nationwide, garnering several prestigious awards. Its chief program officer is Chris Richardson.
I think we tend to say that homeless guy and kind of label people like that. At Downtown Streets team, we like to say that homelessness is an experience, not an identity. Just because you happen to be unhoused, that's not what defines you. I have met people that have come from all different walks of life. I've met someone here in Palo Alto that we served as a team member who had 3 master's degrees. And if I told you a story, you know, it's not that he was lazy, it's not that he had mental health issues, it's not that he had addiction issues. Fallen on hard times, and a lot of times, you know, we saddle the homeless, if you will, with you know, those issues. When we first got started, we wanted to get to know how best to serve folks. That makes sense. One of the questions that we asked, and really the only one that's stuck with us this entire time, 15 years later, is we asked the question, what's the worst part about being homeless? And so, you know, this was designed by folks that had never been through that experience. And we asked, you know, is it being out in the cold? Is it your safety? Is it at night? Is it not being able to use the bathroom? And we were really kind of surprised by the answer. Overwhelmingly, we had a little other box that people could check, and everybody checked that other box. Well, most people checked that other box. And they said some form of feeling looked down upon, or some form of feeling marginalized, or the way people look at me. And you can imagine what that does to your psyche, to your sense of hope, to your sense of dignity, to your sense of motivation for a better life. when you walk down the street, people are trying to avert their eyes and not recognize you as a human. It's really damaging. And so overwhelmingly, the folks in Palo Alto, when we were getting started, said that was the worst part about the homelessness experience. And luckily, I have a very easy thing everybody can do to make a difference and to not put blinders on. And that's just to say hi to folks. And you don't even have to say the words hi. You have to look people in the eye and recognize the shared humanity. And that does so much for folks who are feeling isolated, are feeling marginalized, and are feeling like the bad guys. And you never know when, just enough people treat them like a human, they're going to start feeling better about themselves. And once someone feels better about themselves, they're much more likely to be stable in employment, in housing, to remove roadblocks to homelessness.
What does Downtown Streets team do that is different from other programs?
Yeah.
You talk about a missing piece that
Yeah.
you provide. What is that?
Yeah, the missing piece, there's so many great providers that do vocational programs, for example, for low-income folks. But when you're out on the street, you're in survival mode, and you're worried about where you're going to go to the bathroom, where you're going to get your next meal, how you're going to keep your belongings from getting stolen or swept. And so you can't join a culinary program for 12 weeks when you haven't had a shower in 5 days and you're tethered to your belongings. And you need a bus token first and foremost to get anywhere. For so many folks on our streets, there's not that low barrier entry into other services, and that's what Downtown Streets team does.
So specifically, what form does that missing piece take?
It's a volunteer work experience program where folks come to the team, they volunteer, they throw on a yellow shirt, and they start cleaning up their community. And in exchange, they get a couple of things. One is a basic needs stipend so that they can address that survival mode and get into goal setting mode. But it also comes with case management services and employment services. And I actually think one of the secret sauces, if you will, is that sense of community that they feel. Everybody's in a yellow shirt. It's kind of corny, but they're on the same team and they hold each other accountable. They support each other. And when you come to one of our team meetings, it's really kind of, I always say, unhoused people helping other unhoused people out of homelessness. And they're really doing a lot of the work together in this positive community. And so that's one of the main benefits that our team members get.
Do you see any kind of transitions or ahas among people?
Oh, all the time. I, despite the fact that I've done this work for over 10 years, still sometimes, have my doubts, like this person doesn't seem to get it, they don't seem to want, to change maybe, this behavior that's really keeping them there, and I'm proven wrong all the time, which is really the best time to be proven wrong and makes this job so much fun. I never had considered doing nonprofit work as a career. I'd never thought, it just never entered my mind. I grew up at Pali, work was about making money. I've had jobs where I dreaded driving to work every single day. And I've had a tech job where I hated going to work every day. And being able to love what you do, I feel very, very lucky to be able to do that and to be able to hang my head up high and get paid to make the world a better place. It doesn't get much better than that.